Most people have heard the phrase 6 feet under. It is so common that many assume 6 feet is the standard depth for every grave. But that is not entirely true. In reality, many modern graves are not dug that deep, and in some places, they are significantly shallower. So why did 6 feet become such a powerful symbol of death? Was it ever a real rule, a historical misunderstanding, or the last trace of a long-forgotten fear? To find the answer, we have to travel back to a time when fear shaped the way people buried their dead. Throughout most of human history, burial was never just a way to dispose of the dead. It also reflected what people believed, feared, and understood about the world around them. From ancient graves dug with simple tools to the modern cemeteries we see today, the depth of a grave has never been a universal standard. It has varied depending on soil conditions, religious beliefs, local traditions, and sometimes even major public health crises. Yet somehow, the number 6 feet became the most famous measurement associated with death. Today, join Mido origins as we explore how an ordinary number became one of the world's most enduring symbols of death. The story of the 6-foot grave is most often linked to the Great Plague of London in 1665. As the epidemic claimed the lives of around 70,000 people, fear spread throughout the city. At the time, people had little understanding of bacteria or how diseases were transmitted. Many believed that the foul smell from decomposing bodies could spread illness to the living. To ease these fears, London authorities issued an order requiring graves to be dug at least 6 feet deep. Although this rule was never adopted everywhere, it helped cement the idea of 6 feet as the standard depth of a grave. Over time, the number became one of the most recognizable symbols of death in the English-speaking world. But do you think dead bodies were really responsible for spreading the plague, as many people believed centuries ago? Share your thoughts in the comments, and keep watching to discover the real answer. For centuries, many people believed that dead bodies were a major source of disease. When a body began to decompose, it produced a strong, unpleasant smell, leading people to assume that the odor itself was spreading illness. This belief was widespread across Europe long before the rise of modern science. Today, however, we know that most diseases do not spread that way. For example, the plague that devastated Europe was primarily caused by bacteria transmitted by fleas living on rats, not by the smell of decomposing bodies. This does not mean that dead bodies are completely harmless, but in most cases they were not the source of the devastating epidemics that people once feared. What is surprising is that one of the most famous explanations for the 6-foot burial rule may have originated from a misunderstanding that lasted for centuries. Once a body is buried, the natural process of decomposition begins almost immediately. During the first few days, bacteria that already exist inside the body start breaking down tissues from within. As time passes, microorganisms in the surrounding soil also become part of the process. However, decomposition does not occur at the same rate in every grave. It depends on several factors, including temperature, moisture, oxygen levels in the soil, and the depth of the burial. This is one reason why bodies in shallow graves often decompose faster than those buried deeper underground. With greater access to oxygen, bacteria and other microorganisms can work more efficiently, accelerating the breakdown of organic matter. Today, confirming that someone has died usually takes only a few minutes thanks to modern medical equipment. Doctors can quickly check the heartbeat, brain activity, and other vital signs to make an accurate determination. But for most of human history, it was not nearly that simple. Before heart monitors and electrocardiograms existed, people had to rely on visible signs such as breathing, pulse, body temperature, or physical reactions. While these methods worked in most cases, they could still lead to mistakes when a person's vital signs became too weak to detect. In rare situations such as deep coma, severe hypothermia, or certain medical conditions, determining whether someone had truly died could be much more difficult. Because of this, in many parts of Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries, bodies were often not buried immediately. Instead, they were kept at home or in a mortuary for 1 to several days before burial. This waiting period gave families time to prepare the funeral, while also allowing the community to be certain that the person had truly passed away. The fear of making a fatal mistake played an important role in shaping many burial customs and unusual stories throughout history. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the fear of being buried alive had become so widespread that it even had its own name: taphophobia, the fear of being buried while still alive. One of the main reasons was the limited medical knowledge of the time. Doctors did not always have reliable ways to determine whether a person had truly died, especially in cases of deep coma, severe hypothermia, or certain medical conditions that made the heartbeat and breathing almost impossible to detect. At the same time, newspapers, books, and stories about people who were said to have awakened after being declared dead helped spread this fear throughout Europe and North America. Although many of these stories were later found to have little evidence or had likely been exaggerated over time, they had a powerful effect on public opinion. The fear became so common that many people wrote into their wills that they wanted their burial delayed for several days, or requested that they not be buried until clear signs of decomposition had appeared. To them, being buried alive was not just a frightening possibility. It was one of the greatest nightmares of their time. This widespread fear also inspired a number of unusual ideas and inventions designed to make sure that no one would ever be buried while still alive. It sounds like something from a horror story, but coffins equipped with alarm bells really did exist. Throughout the 19th century, as the fear of being buried alive spread across Europe and North America, many inventors tried to create safety coffins that could give people a chance to be discovered if they were still alive inside. One of the most common designs used a rope connected from inside the coffin to a bell above the ground. If the person inside woke up, they could pull the rope to ring the bell and signal for help. Other designs included air tubes, small viewing windows, or signal flags to improve the chances of being noticed. Although the designs were different, they all had the same goal: to reduce the risk of accidentally burying someone alive. To this day, there is very little evidence that any of these devices actually saved a person's life. Even so, their existence clearly reflects the fears of society at the time. Sometimes, a fear can become so powerful that it inspires countless inventions and even creates an entire market built around preventing it. As modern medicine began to develop rapidly in England and Scotland, a new concern emerged in many cemeteries. This time, the threat did not come from disease or the fear of being buried alive. It came from grave robbers. Medical schools needed human bodies to teach anatomy, but the legal supply of cadavers was extremely limited. As a result, a black market developed for individuals known as resurrection men, who specialized in stealing recently buried bodies and selling them to medical institutions. To protect the dead, many cemeteries hired night watchmen, built observation towers, and installed heavy iron cages known as mortsafes over fresh graves. For much of human history, burials were handled by families, local communities, or religious institutions. Today, however, funerals have become highly specialized services that involve a wide range of costs. In the United States, industry organizations estimate that a traditional funeral can cost around $7,000 to $8,000, not including cemetery plots or headstones. That money covers far more than just a coffin. It often includes transportation, body preparation and preservation, funeral arrangements, staff services, facilities, and other related expenses. As a result, more people in recent years have chosen cremation or simpler forms of burial. This shift highlights an important reality. The way people deal with death is shaped not only by culture and tradition, but also by practical concerns such as cost, available space, and changing lifestyles. In many ways, the future of burial may depend as much on economics as it does on history. For thousands of years, Burial has been one of the most common ways for humans to lay their loved ones to rest. But that is gradually changing in many parts of the world. Cremation rates have risen significantly in numerous countries, largely because it is often less expensive and requires far less space than traditional cemeteries. At the same time, newer alternatives such as green burial, human composting, and alkaline hydrolysis are attracting growing interest. These methods reflect how modern societies are beginning to view death differently from previous generations. Graves are unlikely to disappear anytime soon. However, for the first time in centuries, burial is no longer the only widely accepted option. As new choices emerge, the way people say goodbye to the dead may continue to evolve in ways that would have seemed unimaginable to those who came before us. Looking back at the entire story, what is fascinating is that the number 6 feet was probably never just about the depth of a grave. More than anything, it reflects how people have tried to deal with things they did not fully understand. Fear of disease, fear of uncertainty, and even fear of death itself all helped shape the traditions that survived for generations. Today, many of those old beliefs have changed. Science has given us a much clearer understanding of the human body, while new funeral practices are emerging alongside traditional cemeteries. Yet no matter how these methods evolve, the desire to remember the people who once shared our lives will likely remain the same. And perhaps that is the real reason the story of 6 feet under has endured for centuries. It was never just a measurement. It became a symbol of how people remember, honor, and say goodbye to those they have lost. Have any of you ever worked in the funeral industry, at a cemetery, or in a profession connected to burial and memorial services? Mido Explained would love to hear your stories and experiences, especially the ones most people never get to hear. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and join Mido Origins for more fascinating journeys into the hidden history behind everyday things.